Tewksbury. Another one. Off the end of the bat. Oh, my goodness.
What a start.
A slow pitch softball game breaks out in the Metrodome. Bob Tewksbury, a 1-2 and then something first inning.
Plate breaking stuff, maybe even low in the dirt. See if McGwire gets himself out.
He did throw it.
I'll be darned. I'll be darned.
I'm JB. This is the Back It Up Binge podcast, and I'm talking with former Major League pitcher Bob Tewksbury. Bob, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Jeff. It's good to be on today and talk a little baseball.
Absolutely. Before we head into baseball, let's talk about your book, 90% Mental. I actually read it. Great book. What I really enjoyed about it, and I highly recommend it to anyone who likes baseball, but there's more to the book than that. But there's one chapter where you almost pitched a perfect game and you walked the reader through batter by batter, pitch selection, thought process. And I just thought I need to start the call out, the discussion today with your book, 90% Mental, because I want to recommend it, especially for all the baseball fans out there. Question is, what made you decide to write the book and where can we get it?
Yeah. Well, you can get it on Amazon, or it's pretty. I get contacted by a lot of people for clients, etc., for mental skills coaching as a result of the book. So it's on, Amazon and all the bookstores. And it's still going well, which I'm really happy about. The sad part is very sad, is the co-author of my book, who did an incredible job, Scott Miller, recently passed away from cancer at too young an age, and I give him all the credit for just his ability to take my story and write it was just really well done. But the book idea, actually, I had. The elevated version is I had thought about writing a book 2 different times, and was more of a biography than it was than 90% Mental turned out to be, and it got rejected. And then Christmas Eve, almost before Christmas in like 2016, a book agent called me and said, "I want to do a book. I have the title for it. This is what I want it to be. I want it to be a little bit of your career, but the work that you're doing with athletes at the major league level." We found Scott to write it, and we wrote a proposal, and Hachette Books picked it up. And so we didn't want it a biography. We wanted a blend of my career and examples of how mental skills, came to light in my career, good and bad, and then the work that I did with other players. So it totally came out of the blue, and I'm glad that it did. It was a great phone call from the book agent to start to kick this off.
Well, I will tell you, Bob, I'm a book of the decade club. I don't read a lot, but I really enjoyed it. And the biographical part of your book, let's talk about that, because people see you today, successful Major League Baseball career, and they say this guy just cruised right through his career. But when you read this book and understand Bob's journey, it is not like that, right? So you grew up in a small town, you wind up going to Rutgers. That really wasn't for you, and you wind up finding yourself in a mail order bird seed company. Take us on your journey to get
bird seed. Yep.
Take us on your journey from that to go sort of getting through college, because it's a really interesting journey.
Yeah. Well, I went to scholarship. I got a scholarship to Rutgers, and like you said, I grew up in a small town with a blinking yellow light. We didn't have a phone. The pay phone was up the street. We used the pay phone back then with quarters you could put calls in. But so anyway, I mean, there were more people in my dorm at Rutgers than there were in my town by far. And I just wasn't ready for that type of transition. So yeah, I came home, lived with my mom, got a job at a mail order birdseed. And yeah, I wasn't very happy. I think in the book I talked about, I saw my high school baseball coach down at the bottom of the ramp.
Right.
And I was putting a package on a ramp to go into a truck, and it was really weird that he's there because it was out of the way and from his normal route, and no words were said, but 1,000 words were spoken, if you will. And I was like, I got to get out of here. So that's what got me to St. Leo and down in Florida. So it was much smaller school, further away from home, but that's where I ended up going. And yeah, it was a tough time, no doubt. I went from potentially could have signed a contract out of high school with the Red Sox as a free agent to working at a mail order bird seed place, Duncraft bird seed. But things turned out, but yeah, that's what I tell everyone. And the prologue to the book is about being on Camelback Mountain and staying on the path. And when I sign that book, I say, stay on the path. And when I talk to my clients, I tell them everyone's got a different path, and don't compare yourself to other people. This was my path. Some people have it different, harder, easier, but it's my path, and it worked out.
No, it did, because in 81, you wanted to get drafted by the Yankees. You had a successful minor league career. I know nobody sets out to have a successful minor league career, but you had 43 complete games, I noticed in your stats. Bring back the complete game in baseball, 77 of 32, 2.6 ERA, 153 games. Describe minor league life. Is it everything people hear about and see? And who was your biggest influence on you? Who had the biggest impact down there for you?
Yeah, you think about that. I had over 100 minor league decisions. I mean, who does that now?
That's right.
And 43 complete games. I mean, that's just crazy. But the minor leagues were the Yankees had a great farm system. We were really lucky. We had great coaches, great facilities, great everything. We had winning teams, so you learned how to win. Played with some really good players that came up through the Yankee system. But, the minor leagues is hard. And no matter, even now, it's a little easier. They have every Monday's an off day. They play 6-game series, so they're not, traveling every 3 days. But, the bus rides, the 15-hour bus rides are a real thing. The pizzas and peanut butter jelly sandwiches for food is a real thing, or was then. I don't know if it is now. 5 guys living in a house, that's just a bad recipe for all kinds of things. Cleanliness, proper eating habits, all that stuff. But the minor leagues is where you really, when you start moving up the food chain and you get to AA, you think you got a chance. When you get to AAA, there's a lot of people that are unhappy in AAA because they feel like they should be in the big leagues. And then there's a group of people that are excited to be in AAA because they're close to the big leagues. But, as far as the impact, my A-ball pitching coach, QV Lowe, and Oneonta was a good influence at that time. And Fort Lauderdale, Stump Merrill was the manager, and he was a good influence. And then, AAA with Dave LaRoche and Barry Foote were the coaches in AAA when I was there. So I wouldn't say any one person, but just the cumulative effect of being around good people and good coaches.
Some good names there, LaRoche, Stump Merrill. But while you're in the minors, you suffer an elbow injury, an ulnar nerve injury. You get it operated on, you get it fixed. But prior to the surgery, you had an 88-mile-an-hour fastball. post-surgery, you have an 84 to 85, so you drop a few miles per hour. When you're seeing that on the gun, though, what goes through your head? Because you're known as a control pitcher, changeup guy, pick your spots, pick your location, sequence, ... But does that have some impact on you as a player in the minors saying, oh my God, I just lost 2-3 miles on my fastball that wasn't blazing to begin with?
Not really. I mean, you think about that season, and I was pitcher of the year in Florida State League. I pitched 188 innings in A ball, and the only reason I didn't get to 200 is because of my elbow. And you know why? Because I remember the reason it didn't bother me was because I saw Doyle Alexander, who had come over. He was a veteran pitcher at the time. He's probably in his mid-30s. And I watched him warm up in Fort Lauderdale. I went down to the bullpen. I can still see it in my mind right now. And I watched him pitch. And I said, if he's been successful in the big leagues, I can too. I know I can. And so it just became more, my mechanics got better. My command got better. I made some adaptations. I didn't throw a lot of changeups. I was a fastball curveball pitcher through the minor leagues and really didn't develop a changeup until I got to the big leagues. But my command was what enabled me to stay. Gave up a lot of hits, but didn't give up a lot of home runs and kept men off base with no walks. And that was a formula for success for me.
When you got to the majors, your great control, led the majors 2 seasons. I think it was less than a walk per 9. Amazing. But in 86, you make it to the big leagues. You're with the Yanks. You go 9-5. You go to a staff that has Dennis Rasmussen, Ron Guidry, Doug Drabeck, Phil Niekro, yourself. You and Rasmussen were the only 2 that had a winning record. What was it like going to that staff, pitching with one of my favorite all-time pitchers, players, Ron Guidry, and I'm an Orioles fan, so to say that is a huge compliment to him. A guy like Niekro. What was it like pitching on that staff in Yankee Stadium, and how were they as teammates? Did they take you under their wings?
Well, my rookie year was, started out great, 20 consecutive scoreless innings in spring training. I made the team, won my debut, pitched 7 innings. The next start in Cleveland, but 7 innings, 10 hits, 5 runs. And Piniella came up to me. This is after my second big league start. And I remember him saying, "You're not going to stay here long if you keep giving up 10 hits in a game." And I just given up 6 runs in like 30 innings, and he's telling me that. So I knew I had a short leash with Lou, but Gator was good. Gator was kind of to himself. He was at the end of his career. Rick Rhoden came in. He was, a veteran guy. Joe Niekro was the guy that kind of took me under his wing more than anyone else. Dennis was still a young pitcher and trying to establish himself. But it was, the bullpen guys, Righetti and Shirley, they were a little harder on the rookies. They wouldn't talk to you. They wouldn't give you the time of day. And but it was, so that first year I went in full of confidence, and I ended up getting sent down and get put in the bullpen and came back and had a good September. But it was the next year when my shoulder started to bother me that my time there was limited. I wasn't pitching well. The media starts saying someone's going to go down, and you start to fall into that, focusing on things out of your control, and it affected my performance. I ended up getting sent down and getting traded the All-Star break in '87.
You talk about this interaction you had your rookie season. You're playing the Royals. You pitch Hal McRae high and tight, get a warning. You then later on in the game hit Willie Wilson. He charges the mound.
Yep.
And then after the game, you're walking into an elevator, and it's you and another well-known Major League Baseball player. And you talk about that. Can you talk a little bit about who it was, that interaction, and how'd you feel? What you learned from it?
Yeah, that was it was George Brett, and I struck him out on a changeup in that game, and I won that. That was my third major league start. I got in a fight, and and yeah, Willie. I was pitching. I love to pitch inside. That's the other thing that I did, and for some reason I got a warning for throwing up and into McRae, and Lou was pissed and came out, and then Hassey was catcher, and he goes, "We're not going to stop pitching inside." And so I threw one up and into Wilson. The count was 0-2, and I hit him, and he charged the mound, and so I'm out of the game. We win the game. After the game, the lock or the elevator's in the middle of the stadium, so both clubhouses kind of empty out to the middle. No one's around. I'm in the elevator. Hey, hold on to the door. A guy says, blue jeans, flip flops, t-shirt. It's George Brett. And I'm like, oh, geez. And he goes, hey, what are you doing throwing at our players, kid? And I'm like, and I didn't know what to say. And he said, the elevator doors open, and he goes, hell of a job. Don't stop pitching inside. And that was pretty cool. To hear that from George Brett was pretty cool.
They don't do that much anymore, right? They don't try to own that inside.
No, no
one. The rest.
Yeah, it's an art. There's a way to do it without hitting people, and it's really effective. To be able to pitch inside.
You talked about getting traded. You go to the Cubs, you and a couple of the players for Steve Trout. Was that a surprise to you? And what was the difference between the Cubs locker room and, say, the Yankees?
Yeah, my girlfriend, I had, it was the All-Star break, and we went, now she's my wife now, and we went to the Catskills for the break. And the bellhop at the hotel told me I'd been traded. He was listening to the Fan or something. And, so that's how I found out, and we drove from there to Chicago. I was a little excited at first because it was a change of scenery. One thing that can happen with the Yankees is that they're so veteran oriented, and or at least were then, that as a young player, you just felt that you were going to die in AAA, and you wanted a reprieve to go somewhere. But that wasn't a good place for me because, it's just you go from the Yankees to the Cubs, which are struggling back. This is 88. The Cubs are struggling. Andre Dawson's there, but he's playing on one leg, and Greg Maddux is a rookie and scuffling. Rick Sutcliffe is kind of tailing off, and it was hard. I didn't pitch well. My shoulder was really bothering me at that time, and that was not a good time. That was probably the lowest time in my baseball career, is being there and then not pitching well, and just you come up with the Yankees, people, you have at least one or two teammates, and you go there and nobody. Mm-hmm. And you come over in a big league trade, so there's expectations, and so that was really hard. That wasn't a good time in my career.
You wind up signing with the Cardinals in '89. Your first season there wasn't a lot to speak about, but then all of a sudden you go on this 5-year run with the Cardinals. You go 66-46, 3.48 ERA, and when you look at your stat sheet, it just jumps off at the page. When you look at the stats, how do you account for that rocket ship trajectory in your career? Why did it all come together at that point?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it was a number of things. One, I was healthy. I had won 13 games in AAA in '89. Came up in September, pitched a shutout. Went back, and in 1990 was the lockout. Season started with expanded rosters. And then I got sent back to AAA again, and I was thinking of going to Japan. I'm like, this is crazy. I just, Whitey said I didn't throw hard enough, and they were, it was just a bunch of stuff going on. And then I think it's in the book. It's one of my favorite stories. They call me up in June or something, and Ted Simmons says you're pitching against the Expos on Saturday, and if you do well, you'll get another turn, and if you don't do well, and he shrugged his shoulders, and I was like, okay, this is what every player wants. Give me a chance.
Right.
And I pitched 7 1/3 innings, and I figured I'd get the ball again, and I pitched well again, and I started building up some mulligans, as I thought. The more good games I pitched, the less chance I had to go back down. I think I was 10-11 that year, but
10-9. Don't shortchange yourself.
But still had a good ERA, and then I just came in, and I just felt Torrey became the manager. And I said in the book, Joe gave me permission to be successful. And the story of, he called me in the locker room into his office one day, and he said, you may not have the same stuff as Glavine or Smoltz or Maddox, but I believe in you. You don't beat yourself. You keep us in the ball game. And so it was somebody that appreciated my style of pitching and just kind of gave me some success. And then, we had a great Joe Coleman was my pitching coach, and he was terrific because he boosted my confidence and just, the art of pitching. It was just a great place to play. We had our first child. Just a lot of things really went our way. But I do think the organization is a winning organization.
Yeah.
I felt really comfortable there. And so I think that's I was healthy, comfortable, and refined my craft to where, my command got even better. I think I walked 40 people in over 400 innings, those 2 years combined. So yeah, it was just a wonderful time, full of confidence, and just very happy.
I mean, 92 and 93. 92, you were third in the Cy Young All-Star. Of course, Maddox, Glavine, and then you, right? Those two guys are probably always in your way. But you're right. Yeah, 2.16 ERA. You were 23 and 15 over those 2 years, and you were right, 20 walks each year. And 446 innings pitched those 2 years. I mean, that's just phenomenal. Let's go to 1988. That's the 1998. I'm sorry. That's the magical year, and that summer is the Maris chase. And you're on the Twins, you're going up against McGwire. And I played it in the intro, the Eephus pitch. You decide to throw him. And your son called it the Dominator pitch. Manager Tom Kelly called it the entertainment pitch. But you're facing this guy that literally is a tree trunk in the batter's box. And what made you decide to throw this pitch to him not once, but twice in the same game and get him?
Yeah. Well, I remember the pregame meeting upstairs. Terry Steinbach was just so much fun to pitch to. He was great. Probably the best. Pagnozzi was really good, and Zeal was a young catcher. He was good. And, but Steiny was the man. And so he had played with McGwire in Oakland, and we had go through the thing. The year before, Mark had hit a home run off me on an inside fastball. It hit the cameraman in center field. And funny thing is I shook to the fastball in, and Steinbach called timeout, and he came out with the ball, and he goes, "I guess you didn't get that one in, did you?" And I was like, "You ass, get the hell back behind the plate." So the next year I said, we're flipping it up there. And they're like, what? I said, no, every pitch, I'm going to throw him the Eephus. And so, I said, if I get the first 2 guys out of the first inning, I'm throwing them the Eephus. And they're like, let's do it. So I was never more nervous in my life to get the first 2 guys out of the game. And then all the bullpen guys and the reserves usually hang out in the first inning up in the locker room. They came thundering down the steps to be in the dugout because they waited for it. Yeah, and I threw it, and he took it. The first one he took, and then the next one he grounded out to second or first, and I went to cover first, and I got to the bag, and he just kind of was laughing, and then I'm like, hell, let's do it again. So I did it the second, and the crowd loved it. The crowd was, like, whoa, and then I tried the third time. The third time up, I tried a little bit harder curveball, and he hit a single to left. But so what was interesting is you can see it behind me, the picture of McGwire up in the corner. I painted that, and so I did a lithograph to raise money for the Boys and Girls Clubs of America, and Mark and Griffey. It was during the home run chase, and after the game, I sent him over a note that just said, "Hey, he was signing like 100 of these for charity," and I said, "Hey, Mac, I hope I didn't piss you off too much. I was just trying to have some fun. Thanks for signing the prints or whatever." And he sent me a note back saying, "Oh, I loved it. I was a sucker for those that had swung at him all day long." So it was a really, really fun exchange of dialogue after the fact, that both through written notes.
Yeah, you look at the second one you threw him. He definitely reached, because that was outside, and
It was way outside. Yeah,
and he popped out to second base, and was it first baseman? One of the two guys, I forget who it was.
Caught it, yeah.
And you could easily see where someone like him could take that the wrong way, but he was laughing on both of them.
Yeah.
When you look at the video replay, it's pretty funny.
It was funny. Yeah, it was good.
So during your career, we mentioned some of the managers you played for, but you played for a who's who of managers. You played for Herzog, Torre, Zimmer, Gene Michael, Bochy, Tom Kelly. You've talked about a couple of them. Do you have another Mound visit story from any of those guys that you could share with us?
Oh, boy. Well, I have a Pinella story. My last start as a Yankee, we're playing the White Sox at Yankee Stadium, and I think Weiniger or Cerrone were catching, and Ivan Calderon was up, and I threw him a pitch, and I forget what the count was. It was in the middle of the count, and he came out and he started yelling at the catcher about the pitch selection, and I said, "Hey, I shook to that," and he zapped his head around. And I can't, he used a lot of foreign words, being a nice small town New Hampshire boy. I'd never heard of these words before. And he said, "If you don't get this guy out, you're out of the game." And I'm like, "All right, I'll show you." So I tried to throw the next two pitches as hard as I could, and I walked him, and he took me out of the game. So that was one of them. I don't remember a lot. When the coach goes out to the mound, most of the time you don't hear anything. It's like being body surfing and being under the, you're very emotional. You're focused on what you're trying to do, figuring out. You get all this, who's up, what the pitch was, what you need to do right, what the count is, what the inning is, all that stuff. So. But Dave LaRoche, I have a quick Dave LaRoche story. When we were in Columbus, I'll never forget, Dave LaRoche called timeout before he went out to the mound. He put a batting helmet on and went out to the mound to visit the pitcher with the batting helmet on. And he said, I forget the pitcher, he goes, "Hey, Scott, I just figured that the only safe way I could come out here to talk to you was to have this helmet on," because the pitcher was getting shelled, and it was created some levity. I thought that was pretty funny.
That's great. Bob, if you follow baseball enough, you get that one pitcher who says, "My favorite battery mate, I could only pitch to the second string, the backup catcher." Did you have a favorite battery mate in your career to pitch to?
Well, Steiny was probably a favorite, but John Flaherty was good, and San Diego. He came over in a trade in '96. That was a fun team. We had some good players on that team. No, but I remember we had a young kid come up to catch, and he was scared to death. I think his name was Terry McGriff, and this is what I told all catchers. I said, "Look, you're just putting down suggestions. I'll call my own game. All you got to do is throw the ball back to me. If you miss it, go pick it up and throw it back to me. You put down suggestions, I'll make the final call." And I treated everyone like I was going to call my game, and John Zimmer once said that you could catch me with a pair of tweezers because I didn't throw hard enough. So it wasn't very hard to catch me as a catcher.
Oh, that's funny. One last question on pitching. Did you prefer to face a high average hitter like a Gwynn or a power hitter like McGwire?
Power hitter. Yeah. Tony was a guy, I ended up playing with him for a year, and it was amazing what he could do. You just throw it down the middle, and seriously, throw it down the middle and hope he hits it at somebody, because trying to set him up with something was just a waste of time. But the power hitters, I had great success against Sheffield, and there's Galarraga, there's the Jay Bell. I think I really struggled with Jay Bell. Sandberg was a power hitter, but he was also a contact guy. He didn't strike out a lot. But the power hitters, they had holes, and you could exploit those holes.
Interesting. So after 6 years with the Cardinals, you play for Texas, you go a year in San Diego, 2 in Minnesota, and then you retire. Talk about post-baseball career, what you've gotten involved with, because it's pretty interesting. You said it early on, but it's really interesting. I wanted to talk to you about one of the concepts you talk about as well.
Well, I didn't, I may have still been able to play for a couple of years, but I had nagging shoulder stuff that was continuing, and my desire to be home was greater than my desire to play. So I went back to school. I finished my undergrad, and then I ended up getting a graduate degree in sports psychology and counseling, and started the Red Sox mental skills program back in 2004, which was the early stages of, even though Harvey Dorfman and Ken Revisa had been in baseball in the 90s, teams really didn't collectively start hiring mental skills coaches until, the 2000s, late in the 2000s. So I had that role, and it was great. Teaching, being able to firsthand experience of what it's like to feel, failure, or to be afraid of failure, or to deal with success. There's fear of success too, to deal with the demands of playing, the time away from home, you have to perform, every time you go out there, and those stresses. So it's been a great second career. As part of 3 World Series with the Red Sox, worked for 3 great franchises, then went to the Giants, and then, Chicago after with Theo, and a much different culture in Chicago when I was there as a mental skills coach. So, and then that's when the book came out in 2018, and I'm still working. It's been a great second career. I had a couple of major league players this year. And then I work with a couple of college baseball teams, college basketball team. I have a lot of college clients, and it's really rewarding and fun.
Yeah, we could talk longer about your post-career than we can about your career, but I wanted to talk about one thing that you seem to be a big proponent of, and it's something that I did once in my lifetime, and it's the visualization technique, right? So for me, what I used it as, you would hear this all the time as you're going through your journey in life, visualize things, and then it becomes second nature when it happens. But for me, I was taking the CPA exam, and if you know anything about the exam, you easily first 5 words in the text, you're just going to walk away because that's how hard it is, right? But it was a challenge. It's something I wanted to do, and where I sat was my desk was up against the wall at my house in my home office, and I would visualize. To calm myself down, I would visualize the CPA license right up there the whole time.
Wow.
And for
Nice.
2 months, and it's actually, you can't, it's the one that's cut off is my
I
license.
see. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, I got it. And I just remember when I heard you talking about that, I'm like, I got to talk to Bob about that because it actually worked for me, right? I mean, it's not visualizing bottom 9, 2 outs, bases loaded. But it is that journey of 2 years trying to get your license that it calmed me down. So why are you a big proponent of that? And I mean, it works, but I may not have that, right?
No, I mean, it's proven that it works. The fact that you did that and get your degree, I'm not surprised. I mean, thoughts become things, images are powerful, and the mind or the body doesn't know the difference between a real or an imagined event. And I think when you start to, the Olympic athletes rehearse their runs down the slope or giant slalom, golfers, it's big in the golf. And so I got into it in high school from Norman Vincent Peale was how I first started using it. The Power of Positive Thinking. And my dad had that book, and because he said, if you can see it and believe it, you can achieve it. And so I started doing visualization in high school and kept doing it through my career. And I mean, I can remember games. Well, I think it's in the book. The best one I had was when I imagined walking into Lou Pinella's office and having him tell me I made the team. And my first spring training, I created this image in my mind that I was going to walk through the office, into the office, and have him tell me that I made the team. And every night before I pitched that spring training, I had a Walkman, and I would go out on the beach and I would visualize myself pitching to the opposing team. I pitched 20 consecutive scoreless innings. I took Phil Necro's number 35, and I got a tap on the shoulder, and they said, "Lou wants to see you." And I walked into my dream, my visualization. I can remember a game in Pittsburgh that I was in. I had thrown a bullpen late in the game because we needed an extra arm available in case we needed it. So it was really late. It was a Friday. I was pitching on Sunday, and after I got done throwing the bullpen, I pictured that I was going to walk off the mound at Three Rivers, shaking my teammate's hand. I was going to pitch a complete game. On Sunday, I pitched a complete game.
Wow.
I can give you tons of examples of that. The thing is that I don't think people put in the time to do it. It's really powerful if you spend the time to do it. Lester talked about it. That's in the book about the imagery program that I made John that in 2013 that he listened to before every start the rest of his career. And he said it helped him. You look at John's first half numbers in 2013 and then look at him from the All-Star break on when he started listening to the audio program, and they're remarkably different. So it's just such a powerful thing.
Well, it worked for me, but I could tell you if I had to go back and do it again, you know what CPA stands for? It stands for can't pass again. So, a little accounting joke. Who says we don't have a sense of humor? Just let's close it down. Bob, I appreciate the discussion. This has been just absolutely enjoyable. I usually end it with, some word association. I call it the binge burner. I'll give you, let's do a couple of players just real quick. Tell me your thoughts when you listen to them. And I have to kick it off with somebody that you faced, let's see here, 33 plate appearances, 250 average against you, but I'm an Orioles fan. So Eddie Murray.
Wow. 250. Yeah. Eddie, switch hitter. Obviously is such a great powerful hitter, but he had holes. He liked the fastball. You could slow him down with the curveball but yeah, I forgot that I had played against him. Nothing spectacular to remember about him other than it was great to face a Hall of Famer.
You faced a lot of them in your career. Here's the person that ranks third against you in appearances, 52, Barry Bonds.
Yeah, I don't like Barry Bonds. I told the story the other day. I was golfing with buddies and we talked, and someone hit a ball and they called it a slider. And I said, speaking of sliders, I tried to throw one to Barry Bonds down and in with the bases loaded in San Diego. And the problem was I hadn't thrown him that pitch the whole game. It was his third at bat. And the problem was I needed about 7 more miles an hour on that pitch to have the effect that I wanted, which I didn't have. So he deposited it in the right field bleachers for a grand slam. He was so tough because he had such a great eye and he was hard to trick. But yeah, he was he was a tough out.
Last one for you. I wanted to ask you about this player. He was one of my favorite. You mentioned his name earlier in our discussion. You faced him 47 times. He had some success against you. And the guys that I have listed on this sheet, about 5 or 6, he has the most home runs off you, but Ryan Sandberg.
Yeah. That's just saying that makes me just brings chills to my back. God rest his soul. He used to piss me off because he would hit it and he would go, he said something, and I tried to hit him in Chicago. I tried to hit him right in the middle of the back, and it went over his head, and he ducked, and he flew out, and I remember he ran right by me, brushed my shoulder, but I couldn't get him out, and I found out later he was just sitting. He would wait for my breaking ball. He would just sit on it. Because I'd throw him fastballs, he'd pull him foul. He's a really strong pull hitter. And he just, at some point, he knew I was going to throw him a curveball. And he just waited for it. So, and that's the same. I had good success against Fred McGriff because McGriff always kept waiting for the breaking ball, and I never threw it to him.
You struck him out 10 times.
Yeah.
10 times and 48 times he came to bat. So 20% of the time he would, pull the rip on him.
And he should be in the Hall of Fame.
So just let's close it out. Just one thing you said about Ryan Sandberg, and I want to ask you real quick. He sat on your curveball. They say baseballs are the hardest things to hit because of the reaction time. How can batters actually sit on a pitch and say, I'm going to wait for this when their reaction time is less than, 2 seconds?
That's why they're Hall of Famers. Look, you see enough of it, and it's not like, look, I'm throwing 87 miles an hour. So the hitters eliminate pitches. They eliminate sides of the plate and they eliminate pitches. So they're just like, I'm not going to look away. I'm just going to look in because he can't command away. He can't beat me in, so I don't have to worry about the fastball in. So they'll just wait and they pick up. They just pick up spin. They'll just sit soft, and their eyes, they train their eyes to recognize pitches, and they just have the ability to wait on it. And that's why big leaguers are big leaguers.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah,
good point. Well, my closing comment is, you say I threw 87. Yeah, it's relatively speaking, and maybe a little less MPH there, right? A little less miles per hour. It's still 87 miles an hour, right? So with 60 feet and maybe only 57 with the stride, but we'll leave that for another conversation. Bob, thank you so much for joining me today. Thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. Make sure you guys go out there, buy the book, 90% Mental. It is so worth the read. Thank you so much, Bob.
Thank you, JB. This was wonderful. One of the best I've been on. I thoroughly enjoyed it just as much as you did. And it's fun to share some stories and reminisce and talk baseball. I do miss the locker room storytelling of the game. And so it's great to rekindle that. Thank you.
Absolutely. When you have more time, we'll have you back on and we'll continue the conversation with more
That would be
stories. Because,
great.
you know,
Let's do
everyone,
it.
all my buddies love these stories. So appreciate you joining. Take care. Thank you.